Tommy, if I told you that Toyota was going to take on Rolls-Royce in the luxury market, would you believe me?
No, I wouldn't, but that's exactly what they're doing, because Toyota is launching a new sub-brand above Lexus called Century.
And here we are in the new Century, I guess it's the pavilion, at the Japanese mobility show, where we're going to show you in a second the car that is going to take on Rolls-Royce and Bentley. But first, let's talk about the history of the Century brand here in Japan.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting story. So Century's been around for many decades now, and what they are an exclusive model within the Toyota lineup built for essentially prestigious executives. So a lot of folks here local to Japan said this is not a car to buy if you want to be flashy, if you want to make a statement. This is a car to buy that shows the world you have been really successful. Typically in business, a lot of company owners will buy this car, but it's very Japanese in its approach. It's super understated. The luxury that this car contains is not flashy, right? It's not supposed to be ostentation. It's very kind of subtle. But Toyota now sees a market beyond just Japan potentially with the Century brand, so they're going to spin it off outside of the Toyota brand and create its own ultra luxury division.
Yeah, and I think at least scuttlebutt, this is not confirmed, is that it's going to be sold under the Lexus brand, or maybe I should say above the Lexus brand, but through Lexus dealerships in America. Before we talk about this one and before we talk about the one that's coming to America, let's show them the next generation, which is this white one. So here in Japan, of course, if you drive a Century, it would be like driving a Rolls or a Bentley in Europe. It's the same kind of prestige. It's got a long history of this bespoke, handcrafted, very Japanese, like you said, way of providing luxury. Serenity, may I say, would be a good way of describing these cars. So the idea is when you're in the vehicle, you're never driving it, you're always driven, and you're in a world apart. And their logo that they're going after with Century is one of one.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of their catchphrase. So this is supposed to be a super bespoke brand where maybe the volumes are lower, but the customizability is extremely high, kind of like what you'd expect out of those premier British marques, right?
Yeah.
Now this sedan is interesting, right? The Century has been around, I think, since the 1960s, something like 1964, and they've only had maybe 2 or 3 distinct models or generations of their sedan. Now this is the latest one, something that's made Century very unique to the whole Japanese car industry is it was the only, if I recall, the only factory produced V12 available, which is a very cool little piece of history. Now this new one, if I recall, is a twin turbo V6, so it sounds like it could be related to the LS, but the actual platform in the vehicle is much longer and more expensive than the Lexus LS.
You want to show the little nose on the car? This looks a little bit like a Rolls-Royce, of course. You got that kind of vibe of the latest BMW flavored Rolls-Royce, but check this out. It kind of looks like a flatulent chicken. Why don't you zoom in on it?
I see it, yeah.
It's really a Phoenix.
Yeah, flatulent chicken. It's a Phoenix. It's not a flatulent chicken. Yeah, and look, they also very recently launched the SUV version of the Century. So this kind of here in its local market competes with vehicles like the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, potentially the Bentley Bentayga. So this is several $100,000. Certainly the front end design, and especially that way that kind of D-pillar makes its way into the trunk, that's very Cullinan to me. And then if I kind of peek on over here, you can kind of get a sense of what the interiors of these things are like. So this one's actually very bold. I've never seen one in a color combo quite like this, but the highest qualities of leathers and fit and finish found in the back of these cars. And as the door kind of indicates, this is a vehicle that's meant to be driven in rather than driven.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that this has very much a Bentayga, maybe a Cullinan flair to it, especially from the front where you've got this very upright grille. And they only build a few of these a month, I believe, Tommy. These are very exclusive cars here in Japan.
Right. Now, as I recall, Century's only been sold outside of Japan a few times in history, and it's always sold in very low numbers. And I think part of that is because to Western markets and even other parts of Asia, the Century name doesn't carry much weight, if any, outside of its home country. It's a very niche thing that Toyota is clearly trying to grow and to build into a very recognizable name. So that's an interesting kind of...
Well, we've kept them waiting long enough. Let's get them over here and show them what they just unveiled here in Tokyo. And of course, one of the most unique features of this newest Century is the doors. I mean, look at the way the doors open. And as you can tell, if you zoom in, you can see that the driver actually is set apart from the passenger. Not only do the doors open like a minivan, basically they're sliders, but then the seat also rotates out, so it makes for entry and exit very easy, I guess, and very interesting. And I think these doors are going to make it into production. I don't think this is something that is... You don't think so?
No.
You don't think this is going to make it into production?
I don't think so, no.
I think it's going to make it into production.
Pretty surprised by that. But, you know, look, they're looking for ways to differentiate this car from other Lexus products. Here, let me kind of come on over here and you can see the inside. This is, I believe, a 3-seater. And the reason they gave it 3 seats is so that passenger seat, that's like the seat to be chauffeured in. So that's got more legroom than anything in the ultra luxury space. You can see how that seat swivels, and then there's that center divider that you're talking about, Dad. But there's some other really cool things I want to showcase if I come on over here.
Like the yoke?
Yeah, it does have a yoke, which is a bummer. But it has a passenger screen that comes out of that little Century square there so that the passenger can interact with the screen. It's got a very driver-focused console and binnacle there with multiple screens that are angled right toward the driver. And then it's got this really beautiful cascading waterfall effect of these LED patterns that extend through the entire length of that cabin. And then you can see there on the doors, the door panels are actually animated and can project various colors and displays as you drive along. So there's a lot of really interesting little features. From an exterior standpoint, Dad, this is a kind of a crazy design because clearly it's, well, I don't know how it's a 2-door design, but if it's got 2 doors on each side, is it technically a 4-door? Is this a 4-door coupe? What is this?
I don't know. It doesn't really fit into any category.
It's very tall though, so you'd expect it to be kind of this very low slung coupe, but this is kind of bringing back the idea of a personal luxury coupe from like the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, where it's a very imposing vehicle with a relatively small greenhouse that's not intended for performance, but rather for luxury. Out back, you can see that kind of distinct Century taillight look, and then no rear window.
You know what makes it interesting also is about, now a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, the new Jaguar Prototype 00 came out. Long hood, very similar in at least shape and style to this, and everybody hated it. But here we have, you know, Toyota in the Century form, basically doing that same kind of throwback design to the 30s when you had these big 12-cylinder or 16-cylinder cars that had long hoods and relatively small passenger compartments. Now you're right, there is no back window, and that's because obviously this is a car that you're meant to be driven in, and so you want privacy and you want serenity and you want quiet back there, and the window might get in the way of that.
Let's go ahead and make our way around to the front of this Century concept. It's got a lot of ground clearance too, so it's clear that they haven't fully gotten rid of the idea that SUVs are king, because this is kind of like a high riding coupe, which is a very interesting design. Now coming around to the front, you definitely see a lot of similarity with the Century SUV. So those kind of 4 headlight pods, very distinct in the front end of this. No word on what's going to power the Century, if it's going to be gasoline or electric. So far the other 2, I believe, are hybrids, so it's likely that this could also be a hybrid, but a very imposing front end. This is a get out of my way kind of grill for sure.
Once again, no door handles, as is the way with everything that's new nowadays. You have a yoke, like I said, on the interior, which I don't love, but I guess if this is a car you're going to be driven in as opposed to driving, then it really doesn't matter. You know, take a look. Can you kind of zoom in on the inside of the door there below the window, and you can see kind of this cool pattern that's flashing up and down?
Yeah,
we stopped, of course.
Yeah, we talked about that on the other side. There it goes. Yeah. So very interesting design. Now, of course, this is still very much a concept. Like, it doesn't have mirrors or door handles, so it's likely that mirrors and door handles would make an appearance on a production version. But Toyota is committed to the idea of Century as being an ultra prestigious mark to rival the best in the world. There goes the doors.
And look, I think it's going to be internal combustion, because you can tell that is a real grille on the front of it with, it looks like a radiator in the back, 2 radiators in the front. So if this were a pure electric car, you probably wouldn't have all that airflow going into it. I think it's a handsome car, Tommy. The question, of course, that we don't know is how much will this cost?
Well, they're saying from the marketing that we've heard from the PR team, they're targeting it's going to be many hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So we're talking about cars like the Cadillac
Optic. Yep, I mean, you've got
No, Celestiq.
Celestiq.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
thank you.
Optic.
Yep,
The
yep,
Cadillac Celestiq, which is all electric and comes in at what, 350, 400,000-ish?
Yep.
So this is basically Toyota's.
I mean, this is like Maybach, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, right?
Yeah.
It's very similar in its vibe. Still very little in terms of details that we can share about price or availability, but from what they're hinting, it sounds like this is not going to be just Japanese market. This is going to end up around the world. So drop us a comment below. What would it cost, do you think, for you to be interested in a Century?
The one thing that I think we could make a good guess at, Tommy, is that this will be sold. It won't have its own dealer network, so it will be sold through Lexus dealerships. And I worry that, you know, a top-end Lexus starts at what, 120 maybe, and goes up a little bit from there. It doesn't get into the $400,000 range.
So this would have to.
This would definitely have to, yeah.
So
This will definitely be over 200, I'm guessing. But I'm not sure that, you know, the Bentley / Rolls-Royce customer is somebody who wants to go into a Lexus dealership. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you know, you want a bespoke, you want a kind of a complete custom experience.
Cadillac's doing it, right? You go to
That's
Michigan
true.
and you meet with.
That's true.
So everybody, let us know what you think in the comments below of this new Century.
Hey, what do you think that little light on the side does?
Maybe turn signals. I've seen a lot of these kind of outside screens are really showing up. So yeah, drop us a comment below what you think of the new Century and Toyota's approach here, and yeah, head on over to alltfl.com. We got more for the Japanese mobility
Tommy,
show.
Just like the iPhone, orange is the hot color of 2025.
There you go.
The most expensive vehicle that Toyota's ever built is, of course, debuted in orange. I like it, you know. I'm a little afraid that it's unobtainium for most of us. I'm hoping for the doors to open so we could show it again, but we have no control over that. Anyway, head on over to AllTFL, like you said, where we have more videos from Japan, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Ciao.